We can talk about the KD Draymond first. Great sit down, a ton of gems in it. I think the thing that's getting the most play today, no surprise, is Draymond just straight up asking him about the infamous fight, after the verbal fight after the Clippers game, and the response to that from the Warriors management. And Draymond's question, which I love that he said, because I've been getting my ass kicked since you left, how much was that responsible for you leaving Golden State? KD specifically referenced The Last Dance, said, hey, when Scottie had fucked up, everyone got together and said, you fucked up, and the team was able to kind of share their feelings and move on from it. KD basically said he didn't feel like, the Warriors ever did that. So what did you guys think of that? Kind of interesting to see two dudes of that stature talk about that shit, not 20 years later, but, 2 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's an interesting point you bring up about how we are seeing the real-time grooming of like Draymond being a media personality while still an active NBA player, right? Which is very 2021-ish, I think. But that's probably a whole other discussion. But going back to what you said, I thought it was interesting that they both kind of agreed that the infantilizing of them by the management and Kerr and Myers was what rubbed them the wrong way, right? Like Draymond, was talking about how they were demanding that he apologize. And Draymond was like, bro, I'll talk to Kevin. Y'all aren't going to tell me what to say to Kevin. You know what I mean? Like they were trying to treat that grown ass man like a little ass kid, telling him what he had to say. He had to go apologize. And of course, there was some shit that Draymond and KD had to work out about that. And Draymond probably was the one who's going to have to own up and say, yo, I fucked up. I was wild and blah, blah, blah. But you cannot tell a grown-ass man that he has to apologize to another grown-ass man, right? You have to trust him to be an adult who's going to communicate with another adult and work that shit out himself. Like, I think, of course, management probably should have told Draymond, yo, you got to go talk to KD. Y'all got to work this shit out, and left it at that. You know what I mean? Without putting the fucking onus on him. You have to apologize here. It's a big difference between those two.
I mean, they blew it out of proportion. When corporate suits get involved in shit, this is basketball. That situation was a basketball situation. And they basically
I'm not sure.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if they necessarily blew it out of proportion, because Draymond said in the interview, bro, we knew you checked out last season. You know what I mean? So that wasn't just some random shit that happened in the heat of the moment. That shit was bubbling for a minute there.
But if there's an argument and there is speculation of it, on Twitter or whatever, and then they actually go out and suspend a nigga, they fan the fucking fire, bro. Let them be men and just have the conversation. It was going to happen. You know what I'm saying? These motherfuckers
getting suspended for calling a teammate a bitch is wild.
Bro, that's a lot of shit, bro. And then Draymond even said, he just laughed in the nigga face like, this is ridiculous, because they are a great team, and management fucking panicked. They panicked, bro. You know what I mean? And did some weirdo shit and made it awkward for everybody. You know what I'm saying? If they would have just let them handle it how they was going to handle it, it'll be Gucci.
Yeah, it was just a total misread by management, because of course they were getting the vibe too that, yo, KD, he's got one foot out right now. You know what I mean? And we need to fucking bow down to him and do whatever we have to do to get him to resign. But KD was like, bro, I didn't want that treatment either. You know what I'm saying? I'm a grown ass adult. Me and Draymond could have handled it like adults without y'all interfering.
Even when he talked about the media, he said that shit. I don't like when he doesn't like when they fawn over him too much or they're too hard. That conversation made me understand that man a lot. That was probably the best conversation I've seen with KD. Even though they already had that conversation on the podcast, it was really interesting in breaking shit down. Like, I see why he was saying, like, fuck analytics shit. The game of basketball is very simple to him. You know what I mean? The way he approaches the game, he said, they'll never understand how he sees a game. When he first came in there thinking that they knew everything, all these really complicated ass ways to talk about basketball, bro, it's just basketball to KD. And that's what it is to a nigga that can do what KD does. So, and even how we talked about this in the group chat, like we've talked about this all the time, like chasing happiness is not the goal, bro. Just being content. I'm talking about his balance and how he just wants to be in a moment.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about the fight just for a second, because I think you both got to exactly what I was thinking of in different directions, which is this is what happens when, like, the Warriors, I think everyone felt like were the perfect team for the 2010s. They were a corporate venture that was very successful, and they had a very successful corporate merger with Airbnb 35 Incorporated, right? And that was a successful approach in putting that team together. and then capitalizing off of what they had with Steph and Clay and Draymond. But you had a basketball problem between Dre and KD, where two basketball players who are both very prideful and have their own perspective that's legitimate, right? One of them called the other one a bitch. And they tried to solve it like an HR department. Like they tried to solve it like Bob Myers is a former agent, not a former player. They tried to solve it in this is how we're going to get our synergy back, as opposed to, and to be honest with you, one thing that was interesting was they kind of agreed about the problem management had, but in different ways, because I think what KD was saying when he brought up the Scottie Pippen thing in The Last Dance is we needed to have a day where Steve Kerr said, everyone tell Draymond your fucking problem with him. You know, I mean, like they needed to get all that
airing
out.
Of grievances and shit.
Yeah, but that's what he said. He said, instead of getting it all out, and like he said, they all talk about we're a family. That's the corporate speak, right? Family first. So we didn't do the family thing. We didn't get it out so we could fix the problem with you being the fourth best player on the team, but acting like, this fucking sort of tyrannical figure at times or whatever. And because of that, they weren't able to move on. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I think if I was Bob Myers, I'd be very uncomfortable watching that interview, but I thought that was a really interesting window into when people talk about we need more former players in management and leadership positions. That's exactly the kind of thing they're talking about, because someone who had played understands that, like, okay, I don't need to call this in for an HR meeting. We need to just let these dudes hash it out in the locker room. And then they can either move past it or they can't. But that's their job. That's not the GM's job.
And it probably would have gotten like super heated in that locker room. But they would have handled it and moved on and been better for it. You know what I mean? Sitting down with the suits and, suspending motherfuckers and all that shit, that blows it way out of proportion. You know what I mean? And they didn't like all that shit. It didn't make sense. You know what I'm saying?
Have you ever resolved a difference that you had with someone else in a supervised way? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I totally understood Draymond saying, I was going to apologize to him until you told me I had to, you know?
Like I said, they just read the situation all the way wrong. How do you see two grown men arguing? One of them calls the other one a bitch, and you feel like you have to step in and demand an apology from that dude. Like this dude's going to get up there and be like, I'm sorry, Kevin. Sorry for what? Oh, I'm sorry for calling you a bitch. Gosh. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you expect that to play out, bro? That's not how adults work shit out, man. It was, like I said, it was over babying of the whole situation. And I see why I rub both of them the wrong way.
They wanted him to
adults.
They wanted him to jump in his notes application and run to Twitter and get real, you know what I'm saying? Fuck all of that shit, bro. Like, let them handle that shit how they gonna handle this shit. You know what I mean? Like, and I understand how it got weird. The shit they was talking about, it wasn't. Kevin didn't see it when it mattered, especially when it mattered for him. You feel me? So
KD's found a place with James Harden and Kyrie Irving and Blake Griffin with the Brooklyn Nets that'll be totally drama-free and, everyone. Yeah. But I will say people do seem to be being allowed to, do their shit a little bit more.
Well, you talked about this. You both, I think y'all did. The idea alone, the fact that they got these two people to sit down at this time. While Kevin Durant, to me, is still the best player, is the best player in the world. You know what I mean? But Draymond is still fucking relevant. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we have this conversation now. I mean, what a fucking idea, man. That shit, the fact that they're even talking now just blew my mind. That's why I was thinking a lot when I was watching it. Like, how the fuck are we getting to see this now? This usually was waited. This usually was made a big deal.
This would be like a Shaq Kobe sit down in 2004. Right. So you know what I mean?
Like, gray hair. Niggas, you know what I'm saying? Bad knees, big ass suits, you know what I'm saying? Right. All of that shit. A lot of bunch of crying, hot dogs and hamburgers on the back of the neck. You know what I'm saying? Not a jumper can be shot anymore.
Right. And it's two current NBA players up there, in t-shirts and fitteds.
Right.
2021 like a motherfucker. I love it, bro.
That nigga KD with them Jordan 1s.
Mm-hmm.
John brought it up, but I thought needed to be its own conversation on this podcast, because the three of us have talked a number of times over the years about chasing contentment and peace instead of happiness and joy. And he literally said that. KD literally said that in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's your window into going from the Warriors to the Nets. Maybe the Nets is, I can be myself. I'm at peace here. The Warriors, we could have done all this crazy shit, but it's the work of that, highs and lows and shit that he's trying to leave behind. But I thought that was interesting to see a dude who has so much more money and so much more career success, who's so much more famous than us, arrive at the same conclusion about how to actually live an enjoyable life. I was kind of surprised by that.
When you were at your brokest years, what would have helped you approach shit better? Thinking about the future and chasing happiness wouldn't have. I think the same way, regardless of the same approach would have helped me out. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of what stage of life I'm in. So, multi-millionaire status, I'll never understand that shit. You feel me? $100 million man will never understand that shit. But I know in my life, no matter what level I've been on, that approach would help me the most. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it just goes back to how even-keeled KD is. He mentioned he doesn't like media fawning over him too much. He doesn't like media being overly critical. He's not looking to be a dude who's all, super fucking happy through the roof all the time. He's a dude who just wants peace and calm and being content. And I relate. You're one of us, Kevin. Besides the whole fucking 7-foot alien on the basketball court shit.
You're a 7-foot alien living in New York who could do anything you want at any time you want. And what you want to do is spend your Sundays like we spend our Sundays, watching basketball and talking shit on Twitter. Very interesting.
Makes a lot of sense. But I love I love that they talked about the media. Because I thought he was on some other shit, on some fuck. He's not on some fuck the media shit. He's on some stop asking me these extra ass question shit. You know what I'm saying? Stop trying to create shit. You know what I mean? He's just on some bro, it's not that big a deal. I'm fucking KD. I did that shit because I'm fucking Kevin Durant, nigga. You know what I'm saying? It's not that difficult. Y'all trying to make it super, analytics, all this shit. Nah, nigga, I'm just really fucking good at basketball. You know what I mean? I work really hard and I'm really fucking good. So I get it. I get it. I don't get it. I've never been half as good at anything, but I get why he approaches shit that way. Like I said, this is the best I've ever seen KD. Yeah. Go ahead.
What's that shit he said on his Black Planet page in 2008? I do me and I chill. That's fucking Kevin Durant's life fucking mantra right there.
He's had a lot of growth and change clearly as a person from 2008, but the core desire has remained the same, which I think is very admirable.
He talked about his perception, how he thought about things, differently, how he was younger. He was still him, but he was younger. Now he's an older version of that same thing with a lot more knowledge. You know what I mean? So the things that were amazing to him aren't that anymore. It's I see what y'all niggas are,